The Sharpe Reality. Be sure to follow me on Facebook at Donovan_Sharpe, like my Facebook page, and if you have any questions, comments, or if you want to tell me I'm a keyboard Casanova who's never seen a vagina in the flesh, go to the contact tab on thesharpereality.com and give me your thoughts. That's THESHARP REALITY. Again, thesharpereality.com. Now, today's going to be a little different in that this will be an abbreviated version of a regular podcast. This is Thanksgiving week, and a lot of us are going to be traveling, making plans, spending time with family and friends. So today's episode will be a mailbag / Q&A type podcast. So let's get right into it. Todd writes in, big fan of your ROK work and podcast. Glad you made it onto iTunes as well. I recently got onto iTunes, so you can check out my podcasts there as well. I'll have the links up here fairly shortly. And of course, if you're following me at Donovan_Sharpe, you can find the links there as well. So Todd continues, he says, I hear a lot about running standard game, he puts that in quotes, but I'm wondering what this involves exactly in your opinion. I'm somewhat familiar with push-pull, negs, etc., but was curious about how this is generally applied to create attraction. Any advice you might have would be greatly appreciated. If it's too basic a concept, if you have any resources you'd recommend, I would definitely check them out. Well, thanks for the question, Todd. You ask a very good question with regards to running standard game, if you will. The concept is broad and very basic, yet many men are unable to run standard game, build attraction, and subsequently close the deal. So, the first step in running standard game is making sure that you are at your very best. And what I mean when I say that is to make sure you're in decent shape, make sure your grooming is on point, and that you're not looking like a vagabond or a bum on the street. So for example, if you see a hot redhead at the bus stop, coffee shop, subway, whatever, and you're trying to strike up conversation with her in that state, it's not going to yield positive results. If you're fat, if your breath is bad, if you smell bad, your facial hair is sloppy, your hair is unkempt, and you're wearing, maybe dirty sweatpants and a tattered shirt, it's probably not going to go well. On the other hand, if you approach that same girl and you're in good shape, your hair and facial hair is on point, you smell great, you're wearing decent threads, you've got a much better chance at number closing that particular girl than you were if you were dressed like I talked about earlier. Now, listen, I want you to keep in mind, Todd, that you don't have to be ripped, okay? You don't have to have abs at 3% body fat, have perfect hair, the jawline, wear expensive designer clothes, or anything close to that to garner interest from your target, from the girl. But by the same token, it's very important to be above average in all those areas. Looks are important to females, to be sure, but presentation matters a lot more. You could be a below average looking guy. You don't have any control over that. But if you're in above average shape, if you dress well, she'll see you as an above average prospect. Now, the next step in running standard game after you've improved yourself in that way is the conversational side. Assuming you're not the shy type who is unable to strike up conversation with girls, confidence is always key. When talking to a girl, you're trying to, number close and maybe set up a meetup. One thing that you have to do, you have to make and keep eye contact with her when you're talking. Looking at the ground or off to the side shows a severe lack of confidence, and that kills attraction. Now, on the flip side, when she's talking, definitely pay attention, but don't give her the impression that you're hanging on her every word. She needs to know that you do this all the time, and that what she has to say is no big deal. Again, especially if she's a good-looking girl and she's talking to men with little to no game, she's used to men hanging on her every word and remembering every single detail about her. One little trick that I like to do, and I still do, is if I'm talking to a girl and the girl's name, for example, is, Madeline. When I text her, I talk to her, I'll say, this is Marianne, right? I'll get her name slightly wrong, So that, and again, that's next level game. But if you mess up a girl's name, contrary to what they tell you in Cosmopolitan magazine or any other blue pill advice that women give men, never forget her name. No, purposely give the wrong name, because that gives her the impression that she ain't the only one. That gives her the impression that you could definitely do without her. So again, she needs to know that you do this all the time, and looking off to the side, not giving the impression that you're hanging on her every word, certainly accomplishes that. Another thing, speak clearly. Don't trail off or lower your voice. You're in charge, all right? And your voice needs to convey that. And of course, lastly, relax. Girls are people too. If you're a man that she perceives to be of high value and you come up and talk to her, there's a good possibility that she might be nervous because she's interested in you and she doesn't want to fuck things up. If you're relaxed, she'll be relaxed. And when a girl is relaxed, she's going to be much more receptive to your game and conversational skills. So, to review that particular area, you need to be above average in every way: your overall fitness, your grooming, the way you dress. Then when you talk to her, you need to make and keep eye contact when talking to her. Break eye contact occasionally when she's talking. Again, speak very clearly and relax. You employ those techniques, Todd, and you're going to put yourself ahead of 95% of men out there. In terms of material that you should read while you're working on your game, improving yourself, I would highly recommend Troy Francis from Return of Kings. He is our senior game writer. He provides a shitload of great information regarding how to build attraction, how to close the deal. He really, really knows his shit. I've talked to him a number of times, and I use a lot of his techniques myself. So definitely go to Return of Kings, do a search for Troy Francis, and you'll see his archive. Read every single one of his articles. His articles are never too long, so you're not going to be sitting at your computer for hours and hours at a time. I would also highly recommend The Rational Male and Illimitable Men. That's therationalmale.com and illimitablemen.com. Now, Todd, for my money, these guys are fucking brilliant, because they do such a great job of they break down the female mind like nobody else I've ever seen or read. They help you to understand a woman's motivations, her thought process, her patterns. And if you have that kind of information, if you know, and a lot of times you're going to have to read some of these articles twice, because these guys really, really get deep. But when it really clicks with you, you're really going, like the light bulb is going to go off in your mind at some point. And then if you continue to read them, you'll really start to absorb things. That's really going to help your overall game. Reading these guys is going to kick your game into overdrive. And I'm not exaggerating. That particular material, that is next level game. Like I said, you're probably going to have to reread a lot of their material, but I can personally assure you that it's worth it. So again, thanks for listening, Todd. I really enjoy what I do, and I like helping men live better lives, so I definitely look forward to putting out much more material for men like yourself. Our next question, Kevin writes in, Donovan, what's up, man? Look, I'm a 30-year-old male that's just starting out. I'm a late bloomer like yourself. What do you suggest that I stay focused on? Self-improvement or learn game? Or learn game first, then focus on self-improvement? Kevin, I would suggest exactly what I told Todd. First off, you got to take care of the basics, then learn game. It's important to know that self-improvement never ends. So at some point, you'll have to start learning game if you want to start fucking pretty girls, but never ever stop improving. Now, it's important not to put the cart before the horse. So in the short term, what you should start doing immediately is start lifting. Start getting yourself into good shape. Drop bad habits like porn, video game, social media, anything that doesn't improve you as a man. You need to stop. Those are time-consuming, testosterone sapping activities, and you need to drop those. Wean yourself off of them if you have to. If you can't quit cold turkey, just sort of wean yourself off of them. While you are doing self-improvement, read up on game. Okay, practice, drill, and rehearse. Work on your body language, your conversational skills, like I told Todd, and so forth. It won't be long before you start to look and feel better. So at that point, you can sort of slowly dip your toe in the water and just start talking to females with no intention of getting their number. Just strike up conversation with random females. They don't have to be hot. They can be ugly, just to get you used to talking to perfect strangers. And as you improve as a man and get more comfortable talking to girls, before you know it, you'll start number closing them left and right. And soon after, you'll have 2 or 3 girls that you're seeing, and it goes on from there. So the short answer to your question, Kevin, is focus on self-improvement first and foremost, but read up on game while you're improving yourself. And when you feel you're ready physically and mentally, you can slowly work your way into talking to pretty girls on the regular, and in no time you'll have multiple options when it comes to women. This is what I had to do. When I first started out in game, I never had a problem with striking up conversations with complete strangers, because if you've read my articles or listened to my podcasts, you know I'm a military kid and we moved around a lot. So I've been in many situations from a very, very young age where I was the new kid in class. So I had to adapt very quickly to be able to social. So my social skills got razor sharp very, very quickly. But when I decided I wanted to start talking to women with the intent of eventually fucking them, I had to sort of do a reset on myself. So, again, I just started striking up conversation with complete strangers, and I just sort of went from there. You can never jump into listen, some guys will advise you, hey, jump right into it. Start talking to 9s and 10s, and that's probably the best way to do it. But if you're just starting out in game, you don't want to kill your spirit. You don't want to get too discouraged. You don't want to have approach anxiety all of a sudden. Start off just talking again to complete strangers, men and women alike, then move to exclusively girls, then you move to pretty girls, etc., etc. And again, like I said, before you know it, you can't help but strike up conversation with pretty girls, number closing them, meeting them up later that night, and fucking them, or whatever it is you want to do with them. Our next question comes from James. James writes in, what's up, Donovan? It's James. Your first podcast was really good. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. He says, it was interesting hearing about your journey to the red pill. I've read most, if not all, of your articles about your relationships as a beta. You seem like you were a very nice guy, as I was myself, and women took advantage of it or took it for granted. Crazy how this works. Luckily, I've only been in one long relationship, and it ended pretty badly for me. I am blessed to have found the red pill so early in life. He continues, I am 23, a senior in college, and have always dreamed of having a family with 2 to 5 kids one day, depending on my income. But I must admit the red pill has changed my mindset from when I get married to if I get married, because we know most women can't be trusted. He says, so my question for you is, what's your stance on marriage at this point? I think I remember you saying you were in your 30s. If I get married, it will probably be around 33 to 35, so I was interested in hearing your stance on marriage at this point, what you plan to do, and why. Excellent question, James. You are definitely fortunate to have found the red pill at an early age. I didn't find the red pill until I was in my early 30s. And again, I talked about that in the benefits of being a late bloomer. My stance on marriage at this point is simple. You shouldn't even consider... I'll take this one step at a time. First off, if you are intent on getting married, because listen, there are marriable women out there, but they are very few and far between. We're talking about your 1%ers. So we'll pretend that we're in the bizarro world, and we'll talk about when you get married. So my stance on marriage, if you have to get married, is that you shouldn't even consider marriage until you're in your mid 30s, and not tie the actual knot until you're in your mid 30s. That said, you are absolutely right. Women can't be trusted for many reasons, and because of that, my stance of marriage is don't do it. Here's the thing, James. Within the marriage is just a contract. Men have everything to lose and nothing to gain. She can divorce you for whatever reason she chooses and can take your kids and half your money and you're fucked. Now, women along the way, over the next 10 or 12 years, when they see that you've got game, you're in great shape, you're making solid money, making shrewd financial decisions, women are going to they're going to try to lock you down. There's no question about it. At some point, you're going to hear women shame you and tell you things like, "Oh, if you don't get married soon, you'll die alone," or "If you don't have kids soon, you'll be too old to play with your kids," or sometimes they'll even let the cat out of the bag in terms of hypergamy. They'll tell you things like, "Even if it doesn't work, at least you have a couple of great kids, right?" Well, first of all, we all die alone anyway. If you get divorced, raped, you'll die alone and broke. So either way, you're going to die alone. You may as well die with a little bit of money and some dignity. Secondly, men age much better than women, mentally and physically. So even if you were to have kids at 45 years old, you can still play with your kids, provided you keep yourself in shape. Lastly, what good is having a couple of great kids if you can only see them on weekends when your ex-wife is out getting fucked by her flavor of the week? Marriage just isn't worth it today, James. Like I said, men have nothing to gain. Best case scenario, she stays with you because at that point she doesn't have any other options, but still makes your life miserable because she doesn't love you anymore and she wants out, but she can't because of financial reasons, or she just doesn't have any options, or she got fat. Worst case scenario, she takes the kids and half your money, which will make your life miserable. Either way, you're going to end up miserable. Until you start to see sweeping changes and women change drastically, do not get married. James, listen to me. It is not even close to worth it. And I think you knew that before you wrote that question in, and you needed to hear a little bit of verbal confirmation. I'll be the one to give it to you. Getting married is a sucker's bet. It is a fool's errand, and better than 95% of the time, it ends badly. And this is the funny thing about divorce statistics. They say 70% of marriages end in divorce. The number is probably higher than that. But think about the 25 or 30% of marriages that don't get divorced in the court system. The couples that stay together, they're still fucking miserable. The wife is fat. She's bitching and complaining. They're up to their eyeballs in debt. Their kids don't appreciate him. She's a bad mom. She's had an affair. You might have been cuckolded. She might have a kid that's not even yours. I mean, if the 75 to 80% of marriages that start out end in divorce, you have to ask yourself, man, okay, so how happy are the other 20 or 25%? Chances are they're still fucking miserable. And listen, you'll have and again, this is mainly girls and definitely white knight betas, they will try to combat a macro argument with a micro argument. So if you hit them with, look, man, it's just not worth it. Men have nothing to gain, everything to lose, etc. They're going to hit you with, well, I know XYZ couple who've been married for 57 years and it's been nothing but rainbows and puppies. Even if they were telling you the truth, that's the exception to the rule. When people get married, especially in 2016, the marriage is going to end whether they get divorced or not. They just might decide to cohabitate for a little while they both get their finances in order and then eventually decide to part ways. Now, part of your question was, what do I plan to do and why? Well, listen, what I plan to do is I continue to plan to slay. My plan is to continue to slay sluts. I understand that, listen, all women are absolutely like that. And the 1%ers that aren't quote unquote like that are still like that because they're women. On the off chance I meet a woman who meets my requirements in terms of being a wife is out there, I'm still going to take my time and vet her. But by the same token, I know that the chances of that happening are slim to none. So again, this is listen, man, this is the quagmire of men who have taken the red pill. The upside is that we live kick-ass lives and we do things on our terms. We do what we want, when we want, and who we want to do it with. The downside is that you can't fuck whores forever. I mean, eventually the game is going to end. I mean, I'm 39 years old. I'm a great-looking guy. I age well, but I know that eventually I'm not going to be able to fuck, 20, 25-year-old girls for my own pleasure. I know that at some point the party's going to be over. So what I plan to do is I plan to stack my cash. hopefully within the next 5 or 10 years, I can retire abroad. I'm certainly well on my way financially doing that, and wherever I decide to retire, maybe I'll find a feminine girl at that point to settle down with. Who knows? Maybe have a couple of kids overseas. Even still, I know the chances of that happening are slim to none. So, at this point, I have resigned myself to the fact that I am going to, as a man, I'm going to rely on myself for happiness and contentment. Yes, the presence of a kind, feminine female will certainly elevate my life, but at this point, I realize that having a woman in my life on any level for whatever reason isn't necessary. So when I'm 65 and my dick is shriveled up and I can't get girls anymore, at that point I will have laid enough of a foundation to be able to be content in my life without a woman. It's sad, it sucks that we have to do that, but hey, you know what? We're simply just playing the hand that we're dealt. So again, the short answer to your question is, don't get married. That is going to conclude this episode of The Sharpe Reality. Again, follow me on Twitter at Donovan_Sharpe. Again, like my Facebook page. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to visit my website, thesharpereality.com. Hit the contact page and drop your thoughts to me. If you like what you hear, if you want to keep this thing going, I would certainly appreciate leaving a donation in the tip jar at the bottom of the page. Next Tuesday, I am going to talk about the existence of God from a red pill point of view. Again, I didn't cover it this week because, again, a lot of us are going to be busy. I don't expect this particular podcast to get as much traffic as podcasts past because of course we're all busy. We're traveling, family and friends, Thanksgiving and what have you. But we'll be right back at it next week on The Sharpe Reality. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next Tuesday.